I got really aggressively bullied by teachers and parents in my high school years because they probably saw a kind, talented kid who was failing so miserably in the way that they scored the world, which was school, that they really put a lot of pressure on me in their words, in a way that probably came from a good place in hindsight. But it put a lot of pressure on me mentally when everybody said you're gonna be a loser, you're wasting your talent, you could be doing so much more, you know.
It's right there.
It's right there. I mean, this is real life. You know, I tell stories. This is why I got there. I'm showing my report card right now. I think that when people hear I was a bad student, I don't think they understand how bad. My class rank was 243 out of 254. There was only 11 people that were worse in my high school class out of 254 people. And you know, obviously, I've had disproportionately more success than probably the combination of class, let alone individuals in it. And not in happiness, because so many of them are happy, thank God, but I knew what I was, and I knew what I was gonna accomplish. And so, it was
was it always like that?
Yes.
Like, because everyone knows your entrepreneurial stories, having started like with taking on your family's wine business, right? And like growing it to millions of dollars in revenue.
Yes, was
it the sudden burst into entrepreneurialism?
So listen, here's my true narrative that people are confused by. As a kid with no money, starting with lemonade, making $1 then $2, my parents never gave me money. My parents never gave me money. I never got $1 in allowance, right? My dad lent me $1,000 when I started my business to add to what I had, and then I paid it back within a week because it didn't even feel good, and I was like, fuck that. And so my parents never gave me money, and then I have money, $8,000, $10,000, and then I go into my dad's family business. And then I had my next adversity, which is from 22 to 34, I built an enormous business. I had no social life, and I owned none of the business. And at 34 years old, I leave my family business to start VaynerMedia, and I have nothing, absolutely nothing. Because not only did I build a huge business for my dad and my mom and my family, but I also underpaid myself to reinvest in the business. So I wasn't even compensated properly for my executive prowess. You know, some could say, well, I've built businesses for other companies. I'm like, cool, at least you got paid $400,000 a year, $800,000 a year when you took something from 3 to 65. I didn't get even that. I was treating it as if it was mine. But that doesn't, I used to resent my dad a little bit for that. I'm happy to admit that. But that's because it happened in 2011, 12, 13, when I was stuck in this startup world. And I needed to remind myself that I was in a family business. And every family business of immigrants in America is the old man or the old woman owns it until they die, and then they give it to the kid. So it wasn't that they were doing anything different than anybody else. It was that I was so special, and that's just the truth. Not a lot of kids go into the business, take control, and explode the fuck out of it. So, and then, by the way, and then my next adversity started. I started this business with my brother 50-50 when I had all the leverage, and then he left early, and I had to buy him out. And so like, I am a story at adversity when it comes to the financial part. But my brother, but my brother gave me what I wanted: control and respect and acknowledgement that I was the alpha. You know?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a huge center part of the conversation, right? Like on a personal level with like entrepreneur stories, and kind of like how it plays out across society too, right? Because there's also all these conversations right now about like ownership, about generational wealth, especially for our minority communities and how they're building themselves up. And as the man of influence, I'm curious what your perspective is, you know, as you're looking at the national landscape right now, like what do you think, like when it comes to accumulating that influence, is there something people are getting wrong, or like where should we be directing our attention to really push back against that adversity and progress change?
Look, you know what's so funny? There's such a simple answer to your question in the way that it's synthesized through my mind, which is we need to talk about happiness, actual happiness. You know, like if you ask me how to answer your question, I think that we're in such a metrics-based world. How much money do you make? How many followers do you have? Everything's so
Totally.
mathed out in this tech world. This is why I'm advocating for the incredible, and I didn't invent it, I only followed the story once it happened. I think Instagram eliminating the like count in Australia and Canada really caught my attention because I think it's an unlock to creativity and happiness.
So you're in favor of that?
I'm in massive favor of it.
Interesting, okay.
And it's really interesting. A lot of people are confused by that because I'm at the top of the sphere of it, and I'm like, that doesn't change my opinion of what brings value to people. I don't feel like it's detrimental to me. I feel like I think it actually fulfills my thesis, which is be creative, do what you want, be happy. So, when I think about generational wealth or things of that nature, like the amount of trust fund babies and third generation wealthy kids that I know that are the most miserable people on earth is enormous. I actually think, I remember judging Bill Gates and Warren Buffett for giving away all their money because I came from nothing. And now I understand it way more. I actually think the great curse that most parents give is too much money to their kids. I read an enormous amount of comments. I watch what people consume. I have an obnoxious amount of conversations. There's not an influencer on earth that is more in their community than me, and I'm actually busy because I respect and obsess over my community in a way that I just have not seen anybody else do. I don't know what else to say. I really don't. I feel it's a little bit of an audacious statement, but there is something clearly, deeply entrenched in my soul that is petrified to ever sell out, which makes me feel like I overcorrected in my kindness and human. I don't know what else to say. Like that's I'm trying to analyze me from afar, like my only something is happened or in me that is just petrified of hypocrisy or being full of shit that just has completely just makes me happy. Honestly, and by the way, back to staying grounded. Staying grounded. It's predicated on that. Like I don't even know any other option. I just don't know. I don't know. It would scare the living shit out of me for somebody who actually knows me to say something bad about me. They could speak to my flaws or shortcomings, which I have plenty of, like anybody else. But my spirit, my intent, my humanity, no fucking way. An influencer person brings value to their audience, which creates a relationship with them predicated on value. Whether that value is they're so attractive that you want to look at a model, or they make you laugh, or they give you a mindset shift, or they give you a tactic on TikTok. I don't get to judge why somebody becomes influential. The audience gets to judge. That's fine. That's cool. That's whatever. I think what I think I do extremely well is I counterpoint my own points. I always say that I'm a contradiction. Like, I believe influencers really matter. I was right. I was right 8 years ago when I was yelling about that. It's happened. People have amassed followers and people want to tap into that attention, right? At the same token, if you notice, once I establish that and it becomes acceptant, all of a sudden my message starts changing to the counter move of that, which is like, hey influencers, don't get too high in your own supply. Who the fuck are you? Treat people with kindness. This could go away. Make sure you start building your audience in other platforms. I'm constantly doing that. I'm right about trends, and then I start to help the people that have benefited or aspire to it to understand the counter issue of that trend. There is always a reaction to something that happens. And many things start pure and then get tainted with success. I would argue, I had a conversation with somebody yesterday, and it got into humility, and it's so interesting to me. I was gifted with it, that's all I can say. My parents instilled it, it was in my natural DNA. My bravado is only matched by my humility, and every day that I'm consciously aware of my influence, my scale, my notoriety growing, I subconsciously continue to triple down to make sure my humility is outpacing my growth. What makes me happy is knowing that I'm giving more than I'm taking. It just does. It's also my kryptonite. It's what allows me, and I'm very self-aware, and I'm a communicator. I am absolutely aware that in my 80s or 90s, I could become a very resentful old man. I genuinely believe that right now. And I'm trying to do actions in my 40s now to curtail that. You know, first way to fix something is to acknowledge it. I believe that I give so much, and I've already sensed certain resentment times with my dad, my family, like I have, that I'm like, oh, wait a minute, I need to be careful here. I live on optimism in the future, thus I'm always willing to not take as much because I've got more time. I'm the more talented one. I can always do it. And I think when I get to 80, 90, or if I get terminally ill, I always get scared about getting terminally ill because I feel like I am so optimistic and happy for the future that I could go into deep depression. And so I think about that. I think my vulnerability is my gift. And so what makes me happy is giving more than I take, but I want to be more thoughtful about that going forward because I also don't want that to lead to, you know, resentment down the stretch when I don't see as much time or I don't have as much energy, you know.